What's good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we are back here for another one. And tonight, I'm joined by the homie, longtime friend of the show, one of my first guests, Dante Collinelli. What's going on, bro? How you doing?
Doing good, man. Happy to be back. It's been a while. I feel like the last time I was on was like the preseason.
Yeah, right before the season started,
Yeah.
we did that
Damn.
roundtable. If scheduling would have worked, you would have been on that show last week, but it just didn't work out. So, but let's hop into it. I want to get your thoughts on that monumental win against the Baltimore Ravens. I say monumental considering how badly they've slapped us around the previous 3 games. And on top of that, I want to get your thoughts, but also food for thought. Was that the biggest win of the Brian Flores era?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I guess so, right? Because it felt like if they had lost that game, right, and it was a total blowout, that was kind of like it. Like that was probably going to be the end of the Brian Flores era if they didn't get that win. I would also point to like the what was that, the Week 17 win that they had against the Patriots at the end of the year, his first year, right? The tank year. That was a big one, at least like cathartically for me. That was a big one. As for like thoughts on the game, I mean, it was nice to see the Dolphins come out and just compete in the trenches with the Baltimore Ravens. That's been a huge problem for them, and like for years now. Like I remember when the Wildcat team went to the playoffs, they ran into the Joe Flacco led Ravens and they got curb stomped, right? Like it's been a problem for that for this team to compete with them in the trenches. So to see them come out and play really, really well in defense and control the line of scrimmage and keep the Ravens running game in check was like huge. Now, obviously, you flip it over to the offense and it's just like, the same old crap. The offense is bad. But it was nice to see the defense kind of come out and compete in the trenches, not get bullied, and play really well, right? You saw a lot of the cover zero stuff. And the Ravens did figure out how to fix it. It was just too much and it was too little too late. By the time that they had audible to different stuff and kind of changed what they were doing, I mean, the game was already in hand. Xavier Howard has fumble return for a touchdown, blah, blah, blah. So it was a good win. It was a really good win. It was nice to see that the team had not given up yet. I think that was the other big thing besides, competing in the trenches was like, hey, you know what? They showed up for their head coach, for their team. Regardless of whether or not I think Brian Flores should stick around, it was good to see them show up. So yeah, it's a huge win for him because if they would have gotten blown out by like 20, 30 points again, I mean, I think we'd be having a much different conversation today.
Let me ask you something in regards to that game. First of all, I got to ask you, did you notice even on the defensive side, the energy shift when Tua came in? And secondly, defensively, as a guy who watches a lot of tape, did we put too much on tape with the cover zero against all their different looks in the sense of we're going to have to switch some things up, add some new wrinkles and maybe some new disguises if we're going to continue to run that as heavily as we have been?
Yeah, I think to answer your first question, yeah, I think the energy in the building changed when Tua came in. I mean, it's hard not to. I mean, the fans love him, regardless of what you read on Twitter, even regardless of how Tua plays, the fans love him. And, when he comes into the game, it excites people. And I think that, again, he probably should have started that football game. Now, obviously, you watch the All-22, so you go back and look. This was not a 100% healthy football player who was out there on Thursday night, but he's better than Jacoby Brissett, man. So,
By a mile.
Probably should have been starting the football game. To your other question, yeah, of course you're going to have to do that when you run. I mean, what was it, like 85% cover zero stuff?
Yeah.
You're going to have to change up some looks. I think Robert Saleh, the Jets head coach, I mean, that's the reason that he pointed to for starting Joe Flacco this week was like, you know what? We want a dude back there who's seen some shit. And Joe Flacco has seen, say what you want about him. He's seen everything. So that's kind of the strategy that they're rolling out there with. Cover zero, straight cover zero is not that hard to beat. You throw a slant route against cover zero. If that corner gets beat, that's a touchdown because there ain't nobody there. What's nice about what the Dolphins do is that they show you cover zero and then they do different things. from there. They're not always just running.
They have that
straight
umbrella.
0-0.
They usually run that umbrella. So if you're gonna run that slant, they'll give you the first down, but they're not giving you the house.
Exactly. So that's what's nice about what the Dolphins do. So yeah, are they gonna have to adjust? Of course. I don't anticipate somebody like Joe Flacco and this reeling Jets team. I mean, they're really bad. Being the antidote to that, but when they start to play better teams with better quarterbacks, yeah, I mean that's going to be an interesting test. But my bigger question for the defense is like, what took you so long? You know what I mean? Like, why is this like just we decided to go back
Even
to
against,
what worked like
if
2
you would have
weeks
ran
ago.
this against Trevor Lawrence, what the hell would he have done against you?
And like Trevor's good, like he's a good football player. He had a nice game against Miami, one of his better games of pro. It's just like where was this? Like you said, 4 weeks ago in London, very weird.
Yeah. And I think that stretch from the Colts, take the Bucs game out because we all consider that a wash, anyways. But the Colts, the Raiders, the Jags, and the Falcons. At the end of the season, I think even if we win out, we might look back to that stretch of games and be like, "That's what cost us in the end here."
Absolutely.
Another thing I wanted to ask you in regards to that game is because I don't know if people know this, but the finish line is over there on DolphinsTalk.com, but you also do a lot of work over there on DolphinsTalk.com too, not just blue chip scouting and such. You break down, since last year, me and you, I was doing it on YouTube, you were doing it on Twitter. We were the first guys breaking down every Tua drop back. It's actually true. If you go to Twitter and YouTube, me and you were the first guys doing every single drop back. Even if there's a flag on the play, we were just breaking it down. Okay.
Yeah.
And that throw to Waddle, bro, with a bad finger, whatever, that was a big boy throw, bro. Like that was probably one of his biggest big boy throws at the next level. No,
I agree. Yeah, and when I did the Tua thread this week, the Game Pass gods blessed me with enough technology to actually do it. When I broke that play down, right, it was like I don't even care about, was the throw a little bit too much of a floater? Was it a little bit too high? Sure. What I don't really care about that. What I cared about is that Tua had the balls to hit that window. That's what I care about because I've seen him stare at that window and throw a check down to Myles Gaskin at least 5 times. So seeing him have the confidence to step up and put everything that he had into that throw and have enough mustard to get it in there, that's what I care about, frankly, right? Like I can go through and nitpick the placement of that throw if I want to. There's no need for that, right? Like it was just nice to see him have the balls to step up, throw the ball into that window, and let Jalen Waddle go make a play for you, right?
But was the placement really that bad?
No, I'm not saying it was bad.
The defender was over top of him, right?
Right. Like, I'm just saying you can nitpick that if you want to, right? But again, you're nitpicking. I think the most important thing about that play is that Tua had the balls to thread that window, right? Like that's what matters to me, and that's what he needs to do. That's the next step in his development. This is a guy who is going to have to be more than what he is. Because right now he's a game manager. And again, that's fine. We've only seen him for X amount of games, whatever the hell it is. He's had like 15 injuries. Fine. But like, if he's going to be the franchise quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, he's got to make more throws like that. He's got to try more throws like that. And I think that was the most encouraging sign. So yes, definitely one of the biggest throws on his film so far that we have. You got to see more of it, though. It cannot be a one-off because if it is, you're just not getting any better.
Yeah. And quickly, what a coming out party for Javon Holland. And I don't know if you're like me, but I nerded out. The film nerd in me came out when I saw Phillips take that angle from the goalpost view to shut down that Jackson scramble. I was like, there is that guy I saw that ran down Trevor Lawrence at Clemson. There is that guy that right there. Just quickly, and we'll get deeper into this, but later on, quickly, how impressed were you about those two guys' game on Thursday?
Yeah, I was really impressed with Javon Holland, and I think one of the best things. I'm going to give myself a little credit here while also tearing myself down. I think one of the best things about me is that I'm willing to admit that I was wrong, and I think I was wrong about Javon Holland. he's a lot better than I anticipated being. I was a little bit worried the Dolphins were just going to stick him in center field and forget about him, and that's not what they're doing, and it's really working out well. He's really, really good in the box. He comes downhill. I thought he was awesome against the Ravens. And look, Jalen Phillips, honestly, right now, he's just being an athlete out there. There's not a lot of technique. There's not a lot of refinement, but dude's a freak. A good football player. I think that is going to be a pick that, look, it's going to take a little player. Yeah, like it's going to take a little bit of time for him to, become, an 8 to 10 sack a year guy, maybe next year, maybe the year after that. But when you put him on the football field, you're going to get energy, you're going to get effort, and you're going to get a long-ass dude who runs his butt off, and he's fast. And that's the type of athletes that you need on the defensive line. So I thought both of those guys were quite good.
Yeah, I remember I was super high on Javon Holland. You were just not vibing with that man whatsoever. Did you notice that they flexed him out to the boundary in that cover zero look too?
Yes,
I was like, there you go, that old boy. Because I remember I did last October, like October 28th, 2020, I did the top 25 players, draft eligible players Dolphin fans should be watching, and I did like clips for the top 10 guys and stuff. And Holland was like number 8 or number 9. And I remember like talking about how they used to see where I got my evaluation wrong. And I was a guy who's super high on him. I didn't think he would be, he put on some weight, bro. I did not think he would be this effective in the box the way he is when they do put him in the, I was like, I don't know about that. And bro, that man is laying the lumber at the next level because it looked like he bulked up in his COVID time, bro. He was not, I remember watching Herbert tape because I'd watch the offense and the defense. Javon Holland was not this imposing.
No, I didn't think so. I did like him better. I thought he was a slot corner.
That's what I thought. I thought he was slot and single high. That's what I thought.
I thought he was going to be a slot corner. I didn't like him in deep zones. I'm still not 100% convinced that he's passable in deep zones, right? Like I thought he'd be a liability back there, and he's clearly not. So, I mean, look, good for him, working that COVID year for himself. He got his body right, and he's playing his ass off, honestly. And, it looks like a good pick right now.
Quickly before we get into things too, what have you thought of Waddle so far? I mean, the guy, he had the dropsies early on. He's now cleaned that up. He's on pace to be only the third rookie receiver ever to have over 100 receptions and under 1,000 yards, joining Keenan Allen. And funny enough, the guy they're using him like Jarvis Landry. When we face teams like, the Raiders, they showed us the blueprint of how they used Ruggs, getting him into that open space, and I'm gonna go deep into this with you because I know you watched the film like I do. We faced. I think that the blueprint to follow is how the Bucs used Antonio Brown. Okay, rub routes, crossers, just get him open. See, my whole thing is, Dante, is a lot of these people don't realize, and I'm talking about the people on Twitter who think they know everything. When you run 4.27, the goal is not to say go out there and just organically separate. The goal is to get that 4.27 speed into open space, get the ball into let it go, so other guys got to catch up to that. And I know you watch the offense really in depth, and we run so much trips bunch that it boggles my mind that we never consistently manufacture space with the underneath routes out of that trip set. Like never. It never happens. And then you go watch the Chargers with Keenan Allen, and Keenan Allen gets 3 times a game broken coverage out of that, or Mike Williams does. You go look at the Cowboys and they'll run it with like CeeDee Lamb will get open up. Like we just do not manufacture space schematically wise. And Waddle's still producing with what he has to work with. What has your thought process been on Jalen Waddle this season so far?
I think Waddle's been great. I think that, honestly, I think it's even more impressive that the Dolphins have largely asked him to be a type of player that he was not in college, right? If you watch Jalen Waddle, Alabama, he's not a high volume guy. He's actually a pretty low volume receiver. He's just very explosive in the open field. They just run him down the seam a couple times a game, throw the ball up to him, let him go make a play at Alabama, right? And I had wide receiver, Jalen Waddle was my wide receiver 1 coming out of school this year. So I think that it's even more impressive that he's shown the ability to go out there and just be a consistent route runner, a guy who moves the chains, a guy who, is consistent and, I don't want to say always open in the way that, guys like Julian Edelman and Wes Welker were over the years, but he's almost trying to be that type of slot. And it's almost like playing him out of position a little bit. To your point about the trips thing, yeah, like I agree. I think it's hard because teams just drop into zone, right? Like you can't create space against zone coverage. You see a lot of teams, right? You mentioned the Chargers, right? And that's a really good example. I know Dolphins fans hate Justin Herbert. I just saw him live in person. That man has an absolute cannon attached to his right shoulder, and they throw the ball down the field. So you have to respect that if you're a defense, and that gives you more of an opportunity, right? Like teams are just dropping into zone. They're just taking away routes at the sticks. I remember I tweeted this when they played Buffalo in Buffalo a couple weeks ago. Like the Bills just sat corners at the sticks and then just batted the ball down when the Dolphins ran a stick route or a curl or a comeback. Right? They had like 4 or 5 PBUs in that game. I don't even think they moved for like half of them. Yeah. Like the corners just sat there and batted the ball down. Right? Yeah. So again, like teams are sitting on that crap. Right. So you got to get them to respect you a little bit more. Right. Like I got to man up on these guys because they're killing us down the field in these zones. They're hitting these deep crossers into windows. They're making the, you see Justin Herbert run out there, man. He makes those tough throws 3, 4, 5 times a game. You can blame Tua for that. You can blame the offensive line for that. You can blame the offensive coordinator for that. It's everyone's fault. Right. Like that has been my theme of the year for the offense is that it's everybody's fault. Everyone has a part to play in this. It's a systematic failure when you're this bad. That's why there's no room for Jalen Waddle because nobody respects the ability to get him the ball over the top. It's a combination of the offensive coordinators not calling routes for that and the offensive line not being able to block for more than a half a second. And for Tua for passing some of those throws up because he does do it sometimes. Yeah. And again, you can assign however much of the blame to each of those parties that you want. I frankly don't give a crap. At the end of the day, that's why you can't get Jalen Waddle more space because nobody respects the Dolphins offense. And I don't blame them. If I'm a defensive coordinator, I don't respect them either. They run slants 80% of the time. I'm going to sit on that crap 80% of the time. And I think that it's kind of it's a juggling act. So I think Waddle's been awesome though. At the end of the day, I think he's really, really been good. And they're almost like, again, asking him to be Jarvis Landry. And, I don't really think Jarvis Landry's that good, frankly. So asking him to be that type of player is frustrating, but I think he's doing a great job with what he's been given so far.
Did you see how he was turning Marlon Humphrey inside out all night?
And Marlon tweeted after the game and was like, Jalen Waddle's a dude. Yeah. So like, I mean, again, I think people are upset about, the trade that, the Dolphins trade up for an extra first round pick. To take him over Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith. I get it. I understand.
But people need to realize it's not about the value they spent. It's how they're utilizing him. Like, here's my thing. I'm not mad that I'm wrong about Jamar Chase so far in the slightest. I'm mad that the Bengals have figured out how to use Jamar Chase and we haven't figured out how to use Jalen Waddle. Like, we're not even testing the tops of coverages with him.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I think the other part too, right, is people get mad about that trade is like, I really think that 49ers pick and that Dolphins pick are going to creep very, very close together by the end of the year. If you look at the respective schedules that those teams have, I think that those picks are going to be much closer than people think. I think it's going to end up being like the Dolphins traded up 6 spots for Jalen Waddle, which like, okay,
that's not that bad.
Sure, it's not that bad. So I think he's been awesome.
All right. So with all that said, is the 2021 draft class so far Chris Grier's best yet? I mean, we talked about Jalen Phillips. I know a lot of people will still want Najee, but Jalen Phillips, I think, has silently been having an absolutely phenomenal season, bro. You look at what he's doing just out of the rookie class right now. I mean, really, the only guy who's kind of, better than him when you look at the edge players right now is maybe Odafe Owe.
Ojulari's been nice in New York
Oh
too.
yeah, and
He's got like 7 sacks.
That was my number one guy.
Yeah, me too.
Phillips was my
Edge
number
one,
2.
baby.
But you got, Phillips is number 3 in pressures with 22, behind Owe with 29 and Pay. Obviously Ojulari got like his 6 sacks. Phillips has, I think, like 3.5, so I think he's number 2 or 3 out of that edge class. He's number 2 in quarterback hits. Phillips is number 2 in quarterback hurries. Like, he's quietly having a good season, and if you see it, he's getting there. It's just some of the plays aren't getting finished off, right? Like, other guy like Ogba's getting that savvy vet, like Ogba's getting there quicker, or whatever the case may be. Like, you look at Phillips, and I see this guy could potentially become a 10-12 sack guy. And now Javon Holland, a lot of people are in discussion whether you agree with it or not, or whether I agree with it or not. People are trying to make the push for him being in defensive rookie of the year because, he's number 1 amongst all safeties in pressures. He's number 2 in sacks. I think he's number 1 in quarterback hits and quarterback hurries as well. Eichenberg is number 1 in the NFL in pressures allowed. Davis is number 2 and Austin Jackson's right there with number 3. So, Hunter Long's really not seeing the field, but I ask this because those first 3 picks are looking like they might be complete home runs. And if those first 3 picks are complete home runs, would that make this his best draft yet?
It's a really good question. And here's your, I guess, like, inside tidbit for what I'm working on. My next article is going to be like a very, very long form view of every single draft pick that Chris Grier has ever made since he was elevated to the Dolphins general manager in 2016. It's already 9 pages long. It's like a data-driven story I'm working on, like trying to like quantify how good or bad Chris Grier is as a general manager. And what I am finding is that he is not as bad as Dolphins fans think he is. If you go back to when he was promoted to general manager, again, Mike Tannenbaum was ahead of him for 2 years. But Chris Grier had control of that draft room in 2016 and 2017. That was not Mike Tannenbaum's picks. So here's what I'll say. Is the 2021 draft Chris Grier's best yet? Maybe. I think so. I think it's got the opportunity to be. But if you go back to like 2016, that's an all-pro left tackle and an all-pro corner off the board in the first 2 picks. I know people, maybe have differing opinions on Kenyon Drake. He's a good football player at the end of the day. That's a good 3rd-round pick. So that's a really, really good draft as well. But this one's also got the makings of that, right? You assume that Jalen Waddle continues to take strides. He becomes one of the better young receivers, obviously up there with Chase and Smith already. Those 3 guys have been awesome this year. You like to see that. And then, obviously Phillips keeps developing. He's going to be a terror on the edge as well. And then Javon Holland, look, if he comes out there and he's an above average starting safety, it's a great pick in the 2nd round. So does this have the chance to be? Yeah. And I think it's going to be really interesting. One of the reasons I wanted to write the story, because the perception of Chris Grier on Dolphins Twitter is that he's some incompetent loof. And that is just simply not the case. Now, did he butcher the 2020 draft? Probably. Right. And if that gets him fired, then so be it. I'm not opposed to that. But to act like Chris Grier is some incompetent general manager is ludicrous. So I do think this has an opportunity to be his best draft class. Like the 3 guys at the top, if they hit their ceilings, that's huge.
I got a question for you because you're doing that dive.
Yeah.
Have you noticed a change in drafting philosophy since Flores took over?
I don't want to say it.
Because hold on a sec. Back in, I don't remember the date, but it might have been June. Me and my, my buddy EM Dolphin fan, we did a show and we broke down the free agency. We broke down the 2019 and the 2020 draft class because we couldn't break down the 2021 yet, right? And it was all about how they've handled, how they misuse their resources. And we looked at and then I started looking back at his previous drafts before Flores, and I'm like, man, it kind of stood out to me that, Wingfield if you go back to 2019, follow me here. If you go back to 2019, shout out to one of my mods, Irving, he tagged me in a thread. And Travis Wingfield, when he was on Locked On Dolphins, put out a thread in 2019. You know what he said? He said that Flores has so much say and influence.
Yeah.
He's like, I wonder if Grier is going to be back in 2020 because he's nothing more than a glorified scout right now. Fast forward to this year, when we were getting blown out by the Bills, right, in week 2, Barry Jackson was on Twitter, because remember that's when the Fire Grier stuff really started. He said, listen, if you all are going to criticize Chris Grier, you need to criticize Brian Flores just as much, because because Flores has just as much personnel say, and in some situations, Grier defers to Brian Flores.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you this. You've been deep diving since 2016. Have you noticed a change in drafting philosophy since 2019?
Absolutely. Yeah. And, when I forget which game it was, it might have been after the Jaguars game, I wrote that piece on DolphinsTalk.com where I kind of broke down, why I thought that this is incredibly weird. I'm right in between here. We can just slide the camera. Look at that. You're back. We missed you.
My bad.
That's great. I did a little improv. Lost my train of thought, but I when I did that deep dive into Flores, right? My conclusion from that was that, look, you can look at the 2020 class, you can look at the 2019 class, and you can kind of point to picks that are very Flores-y, right? Noah Igbenogany at pick 30.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Who loves DBs?
With my boy Jonathan Taylor was sitting on the board, and my other boy Antoine Winfield sitting on the board. How does that one look?
Right, that. That felt like a Flores pick. I think you can look at the Robert Hunt pick. That feels like a Flores pick. And again, I think that Brian Flores controls this team, right? And I think Chris Grier has plenty of blame to bear for how the roster is constructed. I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not saying he is above criticism. I'm just saying that the root of this team is Brian Flores and Brian Flores' philosophy. When you go back and you look at the drafts, you look at that 2016 draft, right? It's 3 hits right off the top. You can, say they got lucky with Laramie Tunsil, this, that, and the other thing. Chris Grier had the cojones to pull the trigger on the dude who just got, lit up for a video of him smoking a bong, right? They pulled the trigger on Laramie Tunsil at 13. That was a good pick. Xavier Howard comes next. He's an all-pro corner. He's still on the damn team. Kenyon Drake was a good running back they drafted in the 3rd round. And you can kind of go throughout these drafts, right? 2017, not particularly great, right? That's the Charles Harris year. That's the Raekwon McMillan year. Not the best. You get to 2018, though. That's Minkah Fitzpatrick, Mike Gesicki, Jerome Baker. That's 3 hits right off the top. You throw Jason Sanders in at the end. You throw Isaiah Ford in at the end. Chris Grier can scout, and I think Chris Grier can draft, too. And you look at some of these classes, and you say that, right, with Brian Flores, you just see a couple of picks. It's not all of them. It's not, Brian Flores is some tyrant in the draft room. It's, it's a pick once in a while. The Hunter Long pick, right? It feels like the one this year, right? That was
Quinn Miners. My boy Quinn was sitting right there.
A couple of guys were sitting right there.
Have you seen how good? Spencer Brown was sitting right there. How good's he played?
Yeah, right. It feels like it's not
and
every
another thing,
pick.
Dante. Sorry to cut you off. You know what I feel like, Dante? I feel like 2016 Grier would have drafted Penei Sewell when he fell to him at 6.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one. I don't know. I think that it depends. I think that they really
your boy Eichenberg's though. Your boy Eichenberg giving us Austin. He's like if Austin Jackson bleached his skin, bro. What's going on over here?
I think that honestly, my guess is that
doesn't give up 2 years, doesn't give up 1 sack in Notre Dame, but Lemuel Jean-Pierre finds a way to let this guy give up 9 sacks.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of problems with this offense, right? Eichenberg's job is not easy. He's played 3 different positions in 12 weeks now. And he's a guy who was always limited a little bit athletically, right? He was a technician in college, and it's going to take him a little bit of time to figure that out. But the communication on the line is really bad. Like, again, like some of those sacks that are getting pegged on Eichenberg, I think that there's an argument that they should be on Jackson, right? Like, just lack of communication on stunts, on blitzes, this, that, and the other. Like, you can tell that, like, Tua is trying to direct these, traffic cones somewhere, and they are just like not communicating with each other, and Tua is just running for his
Like
life.
you saw
Right,
that
so it's like
that Gesicki fumble where he got hit by the snap was a silent count. That was
yeah,
on Robert Hunt.
yeah, it's just like, man, like these dudes don't. I don't know if it's the coaching, like what it is, but Eichenberg has not been great. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's been good. I'm just saying that, like, he's been dealt about as bad as a hand, just like Tua has, as you can possibly get dealt, right? It's just like, it's organizational incompetence. That's what it is. It's just bad. Everything is bad on offense. I think that there's a lot of good things on defense. You talk about the offensive line coach. You talk about, we have 55 offensive coordinators. Everything is bad.
Is the O-line worse than we anticipated, you think? Because remember, we were warning people preseason, like this is, I was saying consistently, everyone wants to put the playoff berth on Tua. When I said, this running game in Tua will only go as far as this offensive line takes them, and this offensive line could stall out. And you see, like, for example, that flea flicker, right? The busted up flea flicker where Tua passed it back to Gaskin. You had Isaiah Ford and Wilson streaming down the field, but the protection didn't hold up, so he couldn't make the throw to them. Like this offensive line, everyone's regressed. Like, Hunt, it looks like he's just throwing his hands up and been like, well, fuck it, everyone's bad around me, I might as well be bad too. Like, but then you see some great plays from Hunt, you're like, what the hell? But Jesse Davis is a disaster. He should not be a starting tackle for any team. You look at all our starting offensive linemen, Jermaine Illuminor goes to Las Vegas, and he's one of the best interior guys in the NFL right now. Matt Skura goes to the Giants. They kick him out from center to guard next to Andrew Thomas. He's one of the top performing interior guys now, and these are guys they just let walk out the door. And Austin Jackson, they're making every excuse in the world and moving him around. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, everyone, but as a tackle, he deserves to be cut. As a guard, he deserves to be on the bench at best. Okay, like, he is not good. Dieter, did he really give us that much more of an improvement than Ted Karras gave us? And that's a 3-year project. And you fired an offensive line coach, the most experienced offensive line coach we've had in the last 3 years, Flaherty, after 3 or 4 training camp sessions when he told you Dieter wasn't ready in 2019. Guy ended up being right, but you got rid of him anyways. And, now you got an inexperienced offensive line coach in Lemuel Jean-Pierre, and that's a Flores guy. Steve Marshall last year as the offensive line coach, that was a Gailey guy. Lemuel Jean-Pierre, that is a Flores guy. And I don't know, I thought we were going to fire someone after the Jacksonville game. I don't know how this guy still has a job. I mean, him and Will Fuller have written the book on how to steal money from the Miami Dolphins without a mask and a gun. Like, it's unbelievable what we're seeing right now. This offensive line, bro, we are on pace to give up the most pressures since PFF has been charting pressures in the last 16 years.
It's the worst offensive line I've ever seen.
How could we be worse than 2019? That was historically worse.
It's worse than 2019. It's not even close either. It's not even close either. They're worse. I mean, you have a literal traffic cone playing right tackle in Jesse Davis. I have never thought that Jesse Davis was a good football player. I cannot. Speaking of stealing money from the Miami Dolphins,
at least he plays though.
Yeah, sure he plays, but I think we'd be better off if we had a free rusher and we just threw behind the blitz on every play. I don't.
Hot reads all day.
Yeah, just hot reads. Take Jesse Davis off the field and hot read every play like that. I think we'd be better off, if I'm being honest. Look, I think that it's bad. I don't even know what to say. Like, Robert Hunt is like the only half competent lineman that we've seen.
But think
of
the resources, Dante. 2019 was like, right? Okay, so Dieter's a 3rd round pick. Okay, Eichenberg's a 2nd, and we traded a 3rd. All right, Jackson's an 18th overall pick. Saul McKinley, we traded up, and what was he, a 4th?
Yes.
Look at and you're telling me Kinley's so bad right now, he's worse than what Austin Jackson's giving us right now?
I don't know, man. It's not a good sign that he can't get onto the field. A historically bad offensive line, and the dude can't get onto the field. Like I, I don't know what to tell you. I'm at a loss for words, man. Like I don't even. Can I be honest with you? I'm gonna level with you. I don't even watch Austin Jackson anymore. I just assume he loses every rep. I don't even bother.
Yeah, but what's up? Okay, you're a draft guy. I'm a draft guy, but you're like an actual, like, legitimate draft guy over here. I'm just a Dolphins draft guy. The scouting philosophies don't even match up. You look at Eichenberg and Jackson, they're on two different spectrums in terms of the prospect they were coming out. Eichenberg, technician, not a good athlete, lunging a little bit, not really that effective at the second level. Austin Jackson, very lacking in technique. Well, and Eichenberg had some strength to him for his size. Austin Jackson, functional strength issues, technique issues, especially with the feet and the hands. But he's athletic, and in open space, he can get to the second level. Like, they're not even. And then you look at the frames. What, Eichenberg, 6'6", 302. Austin Jackson, what is he, 6'5", like 330. They're not even scouted. Like, what I'm sitting here saying is, like, philosophically, they don't even match up. Like, who the hell is making the calls here? Because they're told, like, was Steve Marshall the call on Jackson, and Lemuel Jean-Pierre was the call on Eichenberg? Because this looks like two totally different scouts made the calls here on the offensive line, bro.
I don't know what to tell you. And I remember I came on your show after the 2020 draft, and I said exactly what you just said, except I talked about Robert Hunt and Austin Jackson. Just two completely different football players, right? Like, and the Dolphins they talked about, right? Like, what was Flores' thing when he came in? We're going to be this rough, tough, well-disciplined team. And then,
right?
Okay, fine. You draft Robert Hunt in the second round. Yeah. If you're going to be a team that is a gap power scheme and you're going to punch other people in the mouth, Robert Hunt in the second round, maybe it's a little bit of a reach, but fine. I get it, right? Like that pick objectively makes sense. Same thing with Solomon Kinley in the fourth.
Yeah,
right? Big body mover. I didn't think Solomon Kinley was very good, but whatever. It makes sense. Like I understand your thought process. I can follow your way of thinking. Austin Jackson in 18, man. Like, even
looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane.
Right. Like, even if you take Austin Jackson for what he's good at, right? Like, you project him to the NFL level, right? This is a zone blocking scheme, heavy pass team offensive tackle, right? Like, you assume that he develops well and he develops the way that you want. That's the type of player that he is. Not what the Dolphins were talking about being. And that's what made that pick, like, regardless of how I felt about Austin Jackson, right? Because I can sit here all day and say that the Dolphins reached on Austin Jackson, and I can sit here all day and parade myself for that. I had Austin Jackson as like the 91st overall player in that class. I didn't think he was horrible. I didn't think that he was a player without talent. Right. And what we've seen from him is a player who is not even a passable backup in the NFL as a tackle. So, like, that pick never made any sense. And it's very, very weird. And, like, even, again, you look at the other side, like, Jesse Davis is not a mauler. Why is he still your tackle? I don't understand. If you like him because he's a locker room guy, put him on the freaking bench. Let him go block field goals.
Well, it's the same thing they told us with the offense after they drafted Jalen Waddle. They said with Jalen Waddle and Will Fuller, they were going to stretch the offenses with speed and keep men out of the box. They haven't even attempted that. And I know Will Fuller's not healthy, but you got Wilson and you got Waddle. You can still attempt to stretch defenses and keep guys out of the box and make them respect the speed. And then they said they would run on that. They haven't even done that. And I believe them because, and you know how it works, Dante. The offensive coordinator's got to sell the offense to Flores. Then Flores has to sell that offense to Grier and Ross, sits in on the meeting, I assume, before the draft and free agency. And we haven't seen any of that. It's like these guys say one thing and then they go the exact opposite. There's no consistency, especially on the offensive side of the ball. It's mind-boggling.
I don't know what it is. It's just very weird. And again, like, I think
and to think Eichenberg could play guard at 302, 6'6", What are we on right now?
I think they really killed his development with that. He spent, his entire first rookie camp and entire first preseason in the NFL, he spent playing guard. And I think if you talk to any rookie who's ever played in the NFL, no matter if their career worked out or if it didn't work out, they'll tell you that that first training camp is incredibly important to your development and your confidence and building yourself up. They'll tell you that, right? And again, like the Dolphins put him at guard for the entire offseason, and I think it killed his confidence. I think it killed his development. I'm not absolving him of blame. He's been bad this year. He's been really, really bad. He needs to play better. There's absolutely no doubt about that, but they have done him absolutely zero favor. So I don't know what's going on. Like you said, there's no consistency. I think what I've just kind of like accepted is that Brian Flores cannot coach offense. Like that is just what I have like internalized. He cannot coach offense and he cannot hire people who can coach offense. Like that is just kind of what I have accepted at this stage of where we're at right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, speaking of the offense, me and you had a conversation about Tua a couple months back. We were just talking privately, and one of the things you mentioned to me was how simplistic the offense looked to you. Now, I know we saw a little bit of creativity in that second quarter there. That second half against the Ravens. And I know you alluded to it earlier with the slants and everything comment. Is this offense way too simplistic and still too simplistic to really even do anything here?
I think so. Yeah. The running joke on like film Twitter is that is that the Dolphins offense is like an affront to football, right? Like people who just watch film for a living, right? Like the Steven Ruizes of the world, the Ben Baldwins of the world, the Benjamin Solaks of the world, right? Are just like the Dolphins offense is a joke. Like they just like they joke about it all the time because it's just, here's the thing, right? Like we always called for more RPOs, right? Like that's what Tua was good at Alabama. We got on Chan Gailey for that a lot.
We didn't want it to be a base out here. These guys
right. Then that's where I was going with this next, right? Is the RPO can be an element of your offense. It cannot be the offense, right? If that makes sense. And that's what the Dolphins are trying to do right now. And it's just not going to work. It's just not. And again, like you can, people in the chat are mad at me because I slandered Tua earlier, but like, man, the offensive play calling is just, it's basic. They don't give anyone a chance. It's just that like, how many times have they run all hitch on 3rd and 6 this year?
Yeah.
How many times? Like 90%? Like, what are we doing? Like, I don't understand. It's just so like, and again, what's funny about this, right, is I talked earlier about like film guys, right? I am a film guy in air quotes, but I am not a scheme guy. That is not my thing. When I scout players, I'm scouting traits. I'm scouting, body typing, athleticism, different things like that. I am not scouting scheme. That is not my background. My background is not coaching, it's scouting. And those two things are not interchangeable. There is overlap, but they are not interchangeable. If I can sit down and properly break down your offense with absolutely zero questions for the past 2 years, not good, man. It's not good. That's not my thing. I should not be able to sit down and call out your plays. It should not be that simple. And I've been saying that for years. I really have. And again, like I think that the play calling is where it starts. I think that right now what they have is worse than Chan Gailey. I would take Chan Gailey back right now like that. And again, like people got mad at me last year because I defended Chan Gailey last year. I didn't think that he should stay. I didn't think he was the answer. I still don't think he's the answer, but he's better than whatever the heck they're doing now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to say. Like it's, again, I love Tua. I'm staring at a plaque of Tua on my wall currently. I love him. He's one of the 5 jerseys that I own. The Dolphins are not giving him a chance to do anything with this play calling. It's brutal. Like it is just so simplistic. Again, like
and
I should not be able to sit down.
He showed that he can go through his progressions and make reads
That was Tua's strength coming out of school, right? Like, is when you
why
look at
aren't
that
we in
class,
a progression-based offense with the RPO sprinkled in?
I don't know.
Because here's the other thing. Dante. People tried to put the limitation, because it was because Tua was limited. But when Jacoby came in, they didn't switch it up either. All they did was they took out some of the RPO looks because Jacoby wasn't good with quick decisions like that. Other than that, they ran relatively the same offense, a lot of short dink and dunk stuff with Jacoby.
Right. And I think the thing with Tua, right, is that he was very good at what the Dolphins are doing now, right? Like when he was in school, Tua's best traits were short to intermediate accuracy. He was a quick, snappy, smart pre-snap processor, a very, very good decision maker. So I understand why the base of the offense is what it is, but the offense is a one-trick pony, and your one trick is an 8-yard slant pass.
Yeah.
Like that's where we're at. And again, like I'm not saying that should not be a big part of the offense because that is what Tua is good at. Tua was never a elite downfield passer. He was not. Did he hit downfield throws? Absolutely.
And he had nice touch on the
yes, and he has great touch. He does, and he always has, right? You saw it on the Jalen Waddle throw. Dude's got a broken finger, and he still fits that window, right? So, like, again, like, you have to understand that, like, this is what he was good at, and I understand why they want to attack the short passing game. I don't want them to get away from that. The Bengals do it with Joe Burrow, by the way. Joe Burrow has the same level of arm talent that Tua does. He is strong in the same areas that Tua is. Joe Burrow is a very, very good pre-snap processor.
But they test the top with Chase.
And the Dolphins don't do that crap. And again, like, I don't know if it's the play calling, if it's Tua, if it's the offensive line. I don't know. I'm not leaning any of those three ways because I honestly don't know. The only people who know are the people on the team. And again, like, I don't know what to say besides that. I understand why they're doing what they're doing, but it cannot be the entire offense. It just can't. You're not going to win football games like that. You can't win football games like that unless your defense comes out and they shut down the opposing team and they score like 10 points. That's the only way you're going to win football games like that consistently, and that is just not a repeatable model year in and year out.
Yeah, agreed. So I wanted to ask you, do you think winning will quiet the Watson talk for Tua in the sense of if we were to win out here and go to the playoffs, or even if we were just to win out and finish this season 10-7, and he's a big contributor, he's a contributor to those wins, do you think that could quiet the Watson talk and earn him some cachet in Stephen Ross's offense? Because I've been told privately by someone that, and this is before the Houston game, that 5 wins on the remaining schedule was the benchmark to start gaining some cachet in the office of Stephen Ross. Or do you think this is a foregone conclusion that Deshaun Watson will be a Miami Dolphin? Because I think we all know Deshaun Watson as a player is an upgrade over Tua. I mean, he's far more polished. I mean, he's still young, so he still has ceiling and development to go under. And I really don't know if I'd trust this regime to A, protect him, B, put the proper weapons around him, and C, help elevate him as a player. But do you think Tua has any chance of quieting the Watson talk, or do you think it's a foregone conclusion?
It's tough. Are we talking for me personally, or are we talking for the Dolphins? Because I think those are two different answers.
Give me both. Give me both the answers.
So for me personally, I want absolutely no part of Deshaun Watson in the aqua and orange. Like I don't want it. And it has everything to do with his off the field issues. And again, like, I think could Tua quiet the notion that I think that the Dolphins could upgrade on him with a good season? For me personally, absolutely. I never stopped believing in Tua. I never leaned one way to the other, right? Like I'm writing up the Chris Grier piece right now. My designation for the Tua pick is that the jury is still out. That's where I'm at with it. I'm not swinging one way or the other. I am simply a passive observer. I want to see what he can do. I want to see him develop. I want to give him the leash that he deserves. For the Dolphins, I think it's a foregone conclusion. I really like, they would have made the trade already if Deshaun Watson hadn't got accused of sexually assaulting 22 women. I don't. They would have made it already. The Tua would have been gone, or he would have been Deshaun Watson's backup right now if that had not happened. And I think that is kind of I've accepted it. And again, I don't want it to happen. I want no part of Deshaun Watson. But for me right now, I think that the Dolphins, they have kind of conceded to themselves that the only way they're going to dig themselves out of this 20-year slog is with a certified franchise quarterback. And right now, Tua is not a certified franchise quarterback. He can be. There's a universe in which he becomes a, franchise quarterback, but it hasn't happened yet. So the Dolphins are saying to themselves, we need to get a franchise quarterback right now. We are not going to wait on Tua's development. We are not going to take that chance. Objectively, I think that's stupid, but that's where we're at with it, right? If you can, if you can get that instant franchise quarterback, the Dolphins are going to do it. I mean, Deshaun Watson is leagues better than Tua Tagovailoa on the football field. I'm not arguing that at all, right? That is not my argument. Deshaun Watson is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL when he's healthy and on the football field. He's incredibly, incredibly good. But I do not want him anywhere near my football team, given the allegations that he has off the field. And I think that it would be dumb to give up on a player that you just drafted at number 5 overall in 2 years. Tua has not been Josh Rosen levels of bad. You know what I mean? There's a line, right? The Cardinals gave
he's
up
a development. He's a developmental quarterback. That's all he is.
I think.
Let me ask you this:
Give him another year.
Have you seen progress? If you go to last year to this year, have you seen progress?
See, it's hard.
I have.
He's barely played this year, and
I know, and yet I've seen progress. That's what I'm like. That's why I'm encouraged.
I think you've seen some. I think the progress that I've seen from Tua most this year is that he is better at avoiding pressure inside the pocket. I think that he has improved the way with which he deals with pressure inside the pocket, the way in which he is able to throw out of pressure. I think that has improved for him. But as far as him making different throws, outside of the one that he just made to Jalen Waddle, I'm going to be honest, it's been mostly status quo, at least in my perspective. But again, he's barely played this year. I want to see, here's what I want to see. I want to see Tua be the guy for the rest of the season. I want him to play the rest of the year. I want him to be the reason that the Dolphins are competing on offense for the rest of the season. If I see that, I'm willing to buy year 3. If it is more of the same the rest of the year, I'm skeptical. Now, we're going to talk about 2022 draft prospects in a little bit. I do not think, outside of trading for the Houston quarterback, Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, I personally would not invest in a different quarterback over Tua, even if Tua stays the same.
I agree.
Right? I do not think the 2022 quarterback class is something that I want to tip my toe into. And the best free agent you're going to get is Teddy Bridgewater. I'd rather have Tua. So again, I want to see Tua be the guy, stay healthy for 8 weeks, be the reason the Dolphins offense moves the ball down the field. I want to see the Dolphins win some games because of the offense, not in spite of the offense. And again, that's the development that I want to see from Tua. Have not seen it yet.
I've only seen it some games.
Right, you go back to
I know he left the field against Atlanta with the lead.
Right, and again, I go back to the Cardinals
that was a big game for me because he was dealing with all the noise off the field, and then he threw those 2 bad picks. And if you look at him after the second pick, when they focused in on him on the sideline, he looked deflated and defeated. And I said to myself, this guy is not going to come back from this. And then he comes back from that with the fourth quarter drives. And I was like, okay. And you know what he did? And that's why Brian Flores was flipping out when they couldn't make a stop on that final drive defensively, was because he realized Tua dug himself out of the hole and said, okay, here, Brian, defense is your Here's the lead. Goes, and 2 weeks in a row, they gave
blew it.
up a winning field goal on the final drive. So, I've seen it. I haven't seen it consistently yet.
Yeah, I always go back to like the Cardinals game, right? His rookie season, like that for me, and like the second half of the Chiefs game.
Yeah.
That for me, like that was it. Like that was the Tua that I saw at Alabama. That was the Tua that I thought. I mean, Tua's like my fourth highest graded quarterback prospect of all time. Like I loved him coming out of school.
Do you think the hip took away more from him than we originally thought?
Maybe, I don't know, but
because if you notice mechanically since last year, he's still got the habit when he notices pressure's coming, he doesn't plant and drive. He uses his upper body more. And now with the ribs, I've been noticing when he does that, he cowers away. Like if you go look at the Waddle interception in the Bills game, he makes a throw, he uses upper body, and then he cowers away, to protect himself in the hit. And he did it last game too, on that pass where he missed Gesicki over the middle. I've noticed there's mechanical issues that look like bad habits that popped up last year because of overcompensation for pressure and the hip because they started him too early. What do you think about that?
I think it's certainly possible. Again, like, Tua just hasn't.
I haven't seen the footwork I saw at Alabama.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and I asked Benjamin Solak about this. He writes for The Ringer. I think he's one of the smartest people on football Twitter. I asked him, he did an AMA on Twitter the other day, and I was like, yo, what's up with Tua? Right. And I kind of told him, I was like, I thought he was going to translate really, really cleanly to the NFL. And Solak just kind of fired back and was like, yeah, dude, me too. I don't know what to tell you. It's just like, the things around him have failed.
Isn't this an indictment on coaching and what's been going on around him?
It's an indictment on the Dolphins as a team. It goes back to what I said earlier. It goes back to the narrative that I've been trying to drive on Twitter in a lot of the articles that I write. The Dolphins are a deeply flawed and disorganized and really, really bad franchise. There are just systematic problems for this team, right? Like I can sit here and I can nitpick Tua's play to death. He just hasn't been given a shot. And what's really a shame about it, right, is I'm working on the Chris Grier long form piece right now. I'm going to do a long form piece about Tua at the end of the year. And I'm going to force myself to sit down and decide whether or not Tua is a franchise quarterback after 2 years. And that's not the way it should be. But that is the reality that we are in, right? Like that is quarterback evaluation right now. And the Dolphins have not done anything to help Tua, right? Like you can go and look at what New England has done with Mac Jones.
Yep.
Right? Like I did not like.
They've coddled him offensively.
It's working though. Yep. We can make fun of Mac Jones and we can make fun of the Patriots all we want. And I am fully here for it. I can't stand Mac Jones. All right. I'm here for it. Let's make fun of him. They are doing a really, really good job maximizing what Mac Jones does well and what he doesn't do well. And it's working for them. They have a functional NFL offense, and the Dolphins have spent 2 years not being able to do that with Tua, right? So, again, I have problems with Tua, right? I think that he needs to be better, but the Dolphins have also failed him on all fronts. This is a franchise that is just deeply and utterly incompetent across the board. Mm-hmm. And again, I think it starts with Brian Flores. We can argue back and forth. I don't really care. It needs to be something has to change. I don't know what it is, but
let's get into this then.
Ugh.
Martin donates $5. Said Cardinals, Bengals, Chiefs, Pats 1 and 2. Jacksonville, Atlanta. Tua has a decent resume because people forget Atlanta had the 12th best passing defense going into that game against Tua. Tua has a decent resume thus far for being fair about what he's had to work with. All right. So with all that said, now because we're getting into that's a perfect segue. Do Flores and Grier deserve another year? And I'm going to give you my thoughts first. I believe this team is rotten at the core. I believe Grier needs to go. Okay, I don't want Marvin Allen as the assistant general manager. I don't want a lateral movement. He needs to go too. I need him to go. I need the scouting department to be cleansed and reshuffled. We need new drafting philosophies. We need new fundamental beliefs. We need new culture in that front office, okay? It needs to be wiped. We've always done lateral movements or promoted guys from within. Need to dead that, okay? The only one that should be sticking around is Dan Marino as an advisor. The rest of them, peace out, and you can take your secretaries with you, all right? So I want and I know what that means. For me, that means this is what this says. A new GM, my ideal scenario, though it's never going to happen, is you back the Brinks truck up to Ozzie Newsome's front yard, and you say how much.
You're setting yourself up for failure.
It's never going to happen. And you say how much to come down and retire in lovely Miami as our general manager. So that'll never happen. But there's other guys like Ed Dodds and such out there that are really good. There's, Khan from the Steelers. There's executives out there that you can promote. The Ravens are a team I'd be picking apart, though. Because I would be bringing Wink Martindale over as my head coach if I could, with Greg Roman as his offensive coordinator, because that's been the discussions out in Baltimore that if Wink gets a job, Greg Roman will take a lateral movement to go with him as an offensive coordinator.
I don't know if I want.
I mean, if we're going for experience, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, the other guys probably can't get any worse. Although we said that last year and it did. So
I mean, I like Bieniemy coming over with Kafka as his OC. I like Dabble with. I like Dabble with Dorsey as his OC. I like all those. I like Dabble with Dorsey because you're plucking from your rivals there. So those. I also like if you're going first time coaches. I do like Joe Lombardi from San Diego.
Really?
4 years with Drew Brees. Another guy too, which is totally off the radar. No one would give him a head coaching chance, but I would. I'm sorry, I believe in Pep. I've seen what Pep
head coach.
I've seen what Pep did with Andrew Luck. He turned that into a top 5 offense in the NFL. Man. You saw what he did with Herbert in his rookie year. At least offensive coordinator Pep Hamilton needs to be given a nod for.
OC, I'll sign up for. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm talking OC. I'm talking about OC.
Okay.
Like
OC,
that's who Flores should have been bringing in the offseason was Pep. And because I mean, Davis Mills, as bad as he's been, you look at the game he had against New England. That's under Pep Hamilton. Anyways, where I'm going with all this is, I know a new GM is going to want his own coach. I know a new GM and a coach are going to want their own guy at quarterback. Now, this plays into something we're going to talk about, and you already alluded to. Flores is going to be a dead man walking. Tua could be a dead man walking, but I think a new GM is not going to want to trade the assets for Watson, and I don't think you're going to get a new respectable GM in here on the mandate of you have to trade for this guy, or you have to keep Tua, it works either way. It wouldn't work with you have to keep Tua or you have to trade for Watson. It wouldn't work either way. Right. You got to let them come in and do whatever they want. So Tua might get an extra year because they might not want to bite on this draft class. But then at the end of 22, they might reevaluate, because I don't think a new GM is going to trade for Wilson. I think it's going to be end up a Philadelphia Eagle. I don't think they're going to trade for Wilson. I don't think they're going to trade for Watson. I don't think they're going to trade for Rodgers. I think Rodgers is going to go to Denver. And so I think Tua might get an extra year because of the draft class. But even then, if he doesn't ball out in 2022, they're going to reevaluate, and they got 2 picks in 2023 in the first. So that's where I'm at. I think it starts with you gotta destroy and rebuild the front office and let the new guy in charge make the decisions, from the coaching staff on the sidelines down to the personnel on the field. So I don't think Grier deserves another year, and I think that means Flores isn't going to get another year. Where do you stand? Do they deserve another year?
I don't think I think you can make the argument that they could, but for me personally, here's the thing, and I can say this now. I never thought that Brian Flores was a good hire at head coach. Even when they went 10-6 last year, I didn't think it was a good hire. So again, like, I'm on board with axing him as the head coach of this team. I just never thought that the Patriot way was going to work. And I wrote that very long column at DolphinsTalk.com that I'd highly recommend you reading. It outlines very nicely why I think that was never going to work. And I've been, defending Chris Grier a little bit on this podcast. But again, like, I am not a fan of half measures. I don't like half measures. And I think we've already done the half measure of promoting Chris Grier. So if you remove Grier, I think you have to remove Flores. If you remove Flores, I think you have to remove Grier. For me, it's got to be a package deal. I don't like half measures. I think Chris Grier can be a successful GM in the NFL. I would low-key argue he's been an almost successful GM in Miami. I think if they made the playoffs last year, I think the whole perception of this would be a little bit different. But again, like I would, if you remove one, I think you got to take away the other. So I don't think Brian Flores deserves another year. So, by the transitive property, I would remove Grier as well. I think that the problem that I think Miami's going to run into is that Stephen Ross is going to have to decide if he wants to hire the best GM candidate or if he wants to trade for Deshaun Watson. He's going to have to pick between the two because, based on what we've heard, is that Stephen Ross is the guy who's pushing the Deshaun Watson agenda. And Chris Grier and Brian Flores got on board with it, right? Like they have accepted that. So if you're Stephen Ross, right, and you're sitting there and you're saying to yourself, okay, I want Deshaun Watson at all costs. He's my franchise quarterback. He's the guy who's going to bring us to the Super Bowl. He's the guy who's going to bring us to the promised land. And you know what? When we win the Super Bowl, nobody's going to give a crap that he sexually assaulted 22 women. Fine. If that's your thinking, if you're Stephen Ross, okay. At that point, I think you keep Chris Grier and Brian Flores because they've already agreed to be on board with that trade. If you fire them and you keep that mandate in place, every single GM candidate with a backbone is going to turn you down for that job. It's going to be the same thing that happened to the Eagles this year when they tried to interview Brandon Staley to be their head coach. And they told him that Howie Roseman was going to have control over the game day roster. And Brandon Staley said, I'm going to go interview with LA. And he took that job instead. And they hired Nick Sirianni. That's a real story you can read in the Philadelphia Inquirer. So that's what's going to happen to Stephen Ross this offseason if he fires everybody and he goes into these interviews and he says to them, you need to be okay with us trading for Deshaun Watson. Every GM with a backbone is going to turn him down. Every head coach with a backbone is going to turn him down. So he's going to have to make a decision. If he errs on the side of, I want Deshaun Watson, I think Flores and Grier come back next year. Both of them. I do. I thoroughly believe that. If Stephen Ross decides that is what he's going to do with impunity because he's the owner and he can do that, that's what we're going to see. So, again, I think there's a fair amount of good head coaching candidates that I like to see them bring in. I don't want any more people who are remotely associated with the Patriots in any way. Get that crap out of here. That stuff has worked literally one time with the best head coach and best quarterback of all time. Stop it. It's ridiculous.
Well, and the only time it's worked with a coach on that tree is Vrabel. And why did it work? Because he's a player who understands how to connect with players. You hear Patricia, you hear Flores, they come off as dicks to players, and they're not, they have their little favorites. They're okay to some players, but the majority they kind of shun. Vrabel, he's been a player under that system. He understands to be treated like shit. And on top of that, he knows the nuances of the coaching system because he was groomed under it as a coach. That's the only guy who it's really worked for outside of Bill Belichick.
What's funny about the Vrabel thing, right, is who was his offensive coordinator the past couple of years, right? It's Arthur Smith, a guy who runs a very modern, innovative, good offense, right? Like Vrabel had the wherewithal to be like, okay, that's the problem with the Patriot way, right? And I outlined this in the column that I keep referring to. The problem with the Patriot way is that it's rigid. It doesn't allow for people to evolve. It doesn't allow for you to change with the times, right? Like the Dolphins, and I wrote about this when they hired Chris Godsley and Eric Studsville as their OCs this year, and then inexplicably, asked Charlie Fry to call plays for 4 weeks or why, I could not tell you. But they hired those guys as internal promotions. Why? Because they're Flores' guys. He knows them. It's not a change. It's rigid thinking. It doesn't allow for people to evolve. It's the same reason that they moved off of Minkah Fitzpatrick, and I get hate for this all the time. Brian Flores was stubborn as hell and it forced the team to trade an all-pro safety for a first-round pick that turned into Austin Jackson. I'm sorry. You can hate Minkah Fitzpatrick as much as you want. He might be a prick. I have no idea. I've never met the guy. Dude's a good safety, and we traded him for Austin Jackson.
Yeah.
Because Brian Flores wouldn't let him play free safety, and he wanted to play in the slot. By the way, Brian Flores was wrong. He's an all-pro free safety, and he's a terrible slot corner. I'm just throwing it out there. Dude can't tackle in the box.
I agree. It's
rigid. That's why it doesn't work. So, I mean, for me, I'm with you. I'd clean house all the way through. Everybody's got to
go. So let's talk about some 2022 draft prospects that should intrigue the Dolphins. I might be doing a sequel to my video last year where I'll do top 25 players Dolphin fans should watch. I mean, obviously, we could talk about the quarterbacks if we want, I'm a huge fan of Sam Howell. Matt Corral's been okay. Spencer Rattler's fallen off the cliff. Carson Strong's been okay. Malik Willis, I think, is so raw. Like, if you can't develop Tua, you're sure as hell not developing Malik Willis. Obviously, we need a running back, and you got, like, a guy I like, Sincere McCormick's out there, Isaiah Spiller, Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, Zamir White, Jerrion Ely. So there's guys out there. I mean, hell, if we don't sign one, we might need another wide receiver. You got Treylon Burks, Jahan Dotson, Drake London, Justin Ross, Garrett Wilson, Olav, Michi. Offensive tackle wise, obviously this is a big one. Charles Cross, Evan Neal, are some guys out there. Abraham Lucas, a guy I love for a couple of years. Daniel Fallel, Akeem Ikwanu, who projects as he could be a guard.
He's a guard.
And then you got Kenyon Green, another guard. Tyler Linderbaum at center could solve our center problems. We obviously need some linebacker help. Nakobe Dean's out there. I mean, you look at this draft class, who are some players that the Dolphins should be keeping their eye on right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think you named a couple. So for me, it just starts with, all right, what are the biggest needs on this football team? For me, it's the entire offensive line. So that's guard, center, tackle. I think I know that people don't want to invest in that position. I think you got to invest both ways, right? Like, I think you should go out and sign a big name tackle and then draft a tackle in the 4th round. Like you want to double up. You want to throw as many darts at the dartboard as you possibly can at the offensive line position. So, like, some guys off the top of my head, Akeem Ikwanu from NC State. He's a mauler guard.
Yeah.
If the Dolphins want to stick with that model of interior player like they have with Robert Hunt, like they drafted with Solomon Kinley, he's a guy that I'd really like. Tyler Linderbaum is probably going to be the best center prospect I've ever scouted. So I would highly – I've been on him for like 3 years. So this is like –
Would you take him high in the first?
Maybe. Yeah. Like,
I think he's the second best lineman behind Neal.
I mean, he's probably going to be the best lineman in this class for me. Okay. I think that, I mean, he's probably going to end up a top 10 player on my board. So I would take him like between 9-15 is when I'd start thinking about it.
Hypothetically, if that San Francisco pick was 11 or 12, would you take him?
Yeah, I would. Okay. Yeah, I would. Again, I think you have to go to a zone scheme, though. You cannot run a gap power scheme with a center who's that light. If this current regime stays in place, Tyler Linderbaum won't even be on the draft board, if I had to guess. But I would consider him. You look at tackle. I like Charles Cross. I like Sean Ryan from UCLA as well. I think he's a guy who could be people are projecting him to guard. You need one of those two, so go for it. I think he can play football, so I want him. You look at I like the other position I really want to see improvement from is linebacker.
Yeah.
I think Jerome Baker is a perfectly cromulent starting linebacker. The rest of that room is filled with traffic cones and turnstiles. Landon Roberts is awful. Brendan Scarlett is not good. Andrew Van Ginkel is not good unless he's rushing the passer. Just let the man rush the passer. Please stop dropping him into space. He cannot cover. Just let him rush the passer, for crying out loud. So I want to see another linebacker in there. You talked about Nakobe Dean. I think he's really interesting. You have Christian Harris from Alabama. I really like Terrell Bernard from Baylor. He just got his Senior Bowl like today. I think he's a good football player. So I'd look at
What do you
those
think
three
about
guys.
Brandon Smith from Penn State?
He's interesting. He's really athletic. He is very much a I don't want to invoke the name Isaiah Simmons, but he's kind of in that model of player where he moves around a lot. He's kind of this second level guy. I gotta dig a little bit more deeper into his film this year. The Big Ten is my assignment. I'm going to start.
Do you like Devin Lloyd?
Lloyd's good. I really like Lloyd. I think I tweeted that I wanted him on the Dolphins a couple weeks ago. He's good. I would take him in the first round, maybe later, like 20 to 32 range. I think if that's where that 49ers pick ends up, I'd consider him there. I think he's going to end up being LB1 in this class. And then you go to I don't know. I think wide receivers in need.
Are we taking a running back, Dante? I know how you feel.
In the first round, we better not.
No, but you got in the second round, Kyron Williams from Notre Dame might still be, sniffing around. Brian Robinson from Alabama might be, probably will still be on the board. There's going to be a lot of options, outside of the first. I mean, I think we can agree Isaiah Spiller, Kenneth Walker, Breece Hall are probably not all going to go in the first.
I don't think so.
Zamir White will still be hanging around.
I do not think, my hot take early is that I do not think the NFL is going to like Kenneth Walker as much as Twitter does.
Really, eh?
Yeah. So the problem with Kenneth Walker is that he cannot pass block and he cannot catch the football. And
I noticed the pass blocking.
Yeah, when teams start scouting these guys and they watch Kyron Williams plaster linebackers.
He's a beast. Kyron Williams.
Yeah, he's one of the best pass blocking running backs I've ever scouted, and I haven't even filed his final report yet, and I'm already comfortable saying that. So they're gonna watch him. They're gonna look at Isaiah Spiller's ability to catch the football. They're gonna look at even James Cook from Georgia as a better pass catching back. I don't know how much the NFL is really going to like Kenneth Walker. So I think the Dolphins could get him in the second round realistically. And again, there's a difference between running backs don't matter and you shouldn't draft running backs, period. You know what I mean? I think people I'm a big proponent of running backs don't matter. I'll die on a grave for that. But there's a difference between don't draft running backs in the first round and wait until the seventh round to draft Jared Dokes. You know what I mean? There's a nice middle ground. Another name that I'll just throw out there real quick is Zach Charbonnet from UCLA. I think Michigan transfer. I think he's very interesting. I really like him.
My sleeper is Borgie.
You like Borgie? Yeah, he's interesting. He's a day 3 guy. If you get him on day 3,
he's a day 3 guy.
Chop it up. That's great. He had Christian McCaffrey hype 2 years ago, and that was blowing my mind. But good pass catcher, really, really good pass catcher. I'd like to see him. On day 3, I think that'd be good.
Yeah. Do you think they potentially go back to the corner pool this year?
So here's what I'll say about that, and I think this will piss a lot of Dolphins fans off because they don't want to see another corner get drafted. This corner class,
it's good.
Is really good.
Yeah.
Really,
what do you think of Sauce? You like Sauce?
I like Sauce, yeah. Late round 1, early round 2 type player. I think he comes in, he's scheme versatile, he's real clean for you. Stingley and Booth at the top are really good. Yeah. If they change defensive coordinators and they get somebody in there who's more of a zone guy, I really like Trent McDuffie from Washington. I really like that Washington corner pipeline. I hate helmet scouting, but man, are those dudes smart. They really just are. And Trent McDuffie's really good. You can go down the line. I mean,
what do you think about Kerry Elam?
Good. If you're going to run if they bring in a new defensive coordinator or they keep Brian Flores, I think he's, a long man cover corner. You want to run press man with him. He's I think he's 6'3", 6'4". He's a big dude. He's got really long arms, very, very physical. I would not hate if they went back to the corner in round 2, round 3, just to get a good football player. I love Xavier Howard. I think he's a tremendous player. I do think that they should give him a new contract, by the way. I think eventually, though, you're going to have to plan for his replacement. Personally, I would rework a contract with Xavier Howard, and if they get rid of Brian Flores and Chris Grier, I would actually cut Byron Jones. I would like to see his money redistributed to other places.
He's actually having a pretty good season this year.
He's fine. He is. He's totally fine, but he is drastically overpaid, and this team is deficient in so many areas. Like, think about it this way, right? Say you cut Byron Jones, and that allows you to go get a premium left tackle, right? Like you have now entered that market. Like, you got to do it, man. You know what I mean? Like, and I like Byron Jones. I think he's good. I'm not like, this is not me hating on his play. I just think that you can use his money a little bit more wisely. But yeah, I would not be surprised if they went back to the corner. Well, as long as it's like outside of the first round, I don't want to see them draft a cornerback in the first round. I think that's a little excessive.
You know who I'm hoping falls to us, but I know he won't.
Oh, let's hear it.
Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah, no.
And I'd move Holland into the box.
He's
oh my
nuts.
God.
He's
if I had
insane,
Kyle Hamilton as
buddy.
a single high and Holland in the box, I would be like, oh my God. Like, that would be disgusting.
That'd be awesome. that would be really nice.
Who's your favorite running back in this class?
RB1 for me over the summer was Breece Hall. I think I've come around on, I really like Zach Charbonnet from UCLA. Kenneth Walker's going to be up there, even though I said I don't think the NFL is going to like him as much. I really like Tyler Algier from BYU too. He's a sleeper that I like. But top running back for me in the summer was Breece Hall. I don't think it's going to finish that way. He's kind of had a blah year. I still like Isaiah Spiller. I think he's solid. I like Sincere McCormick as well. I think he's a nice little back there. I think that, you're going to have to get him in the right scheme, but I think he can do some good stuff. It's a deep class. I don't think that there's a guy at the top, right? Like last year it was Najee, right? Like Najee was the cream de la crop. I don't think that there is that caliber of prospect in this class. But I do think that there's good depth in this class. I think the Dolphins would be okay investing a third round pick, a fourth round pick, and a running back this year. At least I wouldn't hate it. Sure, let's do it.
Yeah. Like even, getting a guy like Verdell late or Ely late, you know what I mean? Like Verdell, talk about a guy who was Herbert's outlet, bro. Jesus. Now they're not going to be world breakers, but you can get them like late day 3 and they could be definitely contributors, especially for the offense that these guys are running. All right. So, final thoughts here. I know on Twitter and YouTube and, we beat the Ravens and all of a sudden that P word came back into talk. And all I can think about is, what's his face from the Colts playoffs. I'm just trying to win a game. You know what I mean? Mora or whatever his name was. What are your thoughts on, let's not even talk about playoffs. Do you think over these last 7 games, the Miami Dolphins can finish strong? Because, we got the Jets, the Panthers, the Giants, then a bye, then the Jets. And then we close out with the Titans, Monday Night Football against what's it called? New Orleans after the Jets. Then we got the Titans. Then we got New England to finish it out. Do you think this team can finish out strong and maybe finish like around 500 by when it's all said and done?
Yeah, I think they could, just because the schedule is so easy. But I'm sure you'll agree with this, right? It's less about the record and versus how did you look to get there. You know what I mean? Like we can sit here and applaud them for beating the Ravens all that you want. And I think that they deserve it. And I praise them on Twitter and I'll continue to do so. They won that game. That's great. If the Ravens came out and played a half competent brand of football in the first half, the Dolphins would have lost. They're still not good. They're still not a good football team, and they might come out and beat the Jets this week. And all of a sudden you're 4-7 and you're on a 2-game winning streak. And, maybe 2 is playing a little bit better. And, here comes the magic, blah, blah, blah. This is not a good football team, guys. They're not good. They're still not good unless something like really, really changes here, a flip of the switch. And you don't see that very often. Typically this late in the season, who teams are. The Dolphins are going to win more football games because they play a bunch of incompetent teams down the stretch. I get it. They might be able to get on a 3-game winning streak, a 4-game winning streak, 5-game winning streak, whatever it ends up being. But this is a team that has problems. And again, For me, can they finish 500? Sure. Why the hell not? But like, will they? I don't know. I don't have that much faith in them. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, I just, we've already won 2 games in a row, right? If we were to finish out and run the table, that'd be 9 games in a row. I just don't see that happening. It never goes that easy for us, man. Like it never goes that easy at
It's
all.
never that easy for the Dolphins, is it?
No, bro. Like
they're gonna lose like 1 or 2 stupid games.
Yeah, and I know and here's the thing, I know even if we win out at 10-7, because 10-6 didn't get you in the playoffs last year, I know we'll miss out and we'll look back to that 3 or 4 games between the Raiders, the Colts, Jacksonville, and Atlanta, and be like, wow, if we ran our bread and butter defense, we would be in the playoffs right now.
Maybe.
Like,
yeah.
That's just so Dolphins, bro. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
That's what I'm saying, man. The franchise is just rotten to the core, my dude. Like,
and then it makes it worse when shout out to Mike from Dolphins Talk for putting it out there that even if Ross sells the team, there's a succession plan in place, so it ain't changing up very much. Dante, go ahead, plug anything you got dropping, where people can find you, because you are now with the homie Ryan Roberts doing the thing over there at Rise and Draft. So plug everything you got going on.
Yeah, so for NFL draft stuff, if you're into the NFL draft, I am the scouting director over at Blue Chip Scouting. We are going to start pumping out final reports for players. We're going to be dropping a draft guide that's going to have like 200 to 250 draft reports at the end of the year. So please follow the Blue Chip Scouting account, follow my account. We're going to start pumping those out soon. We're start all 22 from the college season starting to run in, so we're going to get firing on all cylinders. For more draft content, I've been doing a lot of film breakdowns of 2022 quarterbacks for RisenDraft.com. That's Ryan Roberts. If you're a listener of the show, watcher of the show, then you have seen him on here. He comes on a lot. He's awesome. He's my boss over there, so he's great. For Dolphin stuff, DolphinsTalk.com. Obviously, again, I'm working on that Chris Grier project. I'm hoping maybe I can finish it over Thanksgiving break. I suck at math, and this is a lot of math, so that has been the holdup for me. I went into journalism to get rid of math, and here I am. But DolphinsTalk.com for that, and then if you're a sicko and you like Temple football and you like college football, I'm a Temple football beat reporter for Yahoo.com. I do a lot of good stuff, a lot of good reporting for them. Might be covering my 3rd head coaching search in 4 years. So that's where you can find all of my work. Very, very exciting time of the year. I love this time of the year. We're right, Senior Bowl invites, right on the cusp of draft season. Very, very exciting.
Are you going down to the Senior Bowl this year?
Maybe. I'm trying. I got to figure it out, man. There's so many brand guys for me. I feel like I got to get down there, like
for the brand, man.
I'm getting the itch. I'm getting the itch, man. It's not good.
What did you go down to last year?
I didn't go anywhere last year because of the pandemic. I did.
Remember the brawl? The brawl was trying to set you up with something.
Yeah, they wanted me to go to the GCS All-Star game after we told them that we were going to quit, but we don't have to air that dirty laundry out on live.
I think that's what I thought you went.
Yeah, no, they wanted us to go, and we were just kind of like, we don't like you guys, so we're going to quit instead.
We're done. We're out.
Which we were right. When's the last time I saw a tweet from the Bro Network, brother?
Bro, they got shut down.
Damn, they did. That's right. Yes, we got out of there.
Yeah. Man, I appreciate you for coming on today. It was a fun time, bro. And
yeah, thanks for having me, man.
At the end of the year, we'll be doing that end of the season panel and everything. Guys, I'll be back tomorrow night. We will preview the MetLife takeover between the Dolphins and the Jets. Be prepared for my prediction because it's very lopsided and in the Dolphins' favor. So, guys, I will see you tomorrow night between 8 and 8:30. Make sure the bells are hit so you get notifications when I go live. Until then, I hope you all stay happy, healthy, safe, and blessed. I hope you enjoyed listening to us and also watching Thursday Night Football in the background because it sounds like it wasn't that good of a game. So appreciate all of you. Fins up all day, every day, and we'll see y'all tomorrow night. Have a good evening, everyone.